So the Milwaukee Bucks decided that despite being tied for the second best record in the NBA, they were going to go ahead and fire their head coach, Adrian Griffin. And now it seems like the most probable person to actually land that job is going to be one Doc Rivers. Hello everybody, welcome to Us Rusty Buckets. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already and drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and it makes a massive difference in how the video performs in the YouTube algorithm. Also real quick, just want to say one thing. I'd really appreciate it if you went and checked out my most recent main channel video. If you have not yet, it's a long form discussion about offense in the NBA, the direction it's headed, the history of it, what rule changes should potentially be made, all that kind of stuff. The link will be in the description. It should be the top link. Also, do you ever get a haircut and then debut it to tens of thousands of anonymous people who have the option to comment? Do you ever do that? No? Well, I can tell you it sucks. So please be nice. Anyways, the subject of today outside of the Bucks coaching drama is I'm also going to talk about Pascal's weird start with the Indiana Pacers. There's not much to be too critical of at this point, but it has been a mixed bag. And I also want to talk about the Phoenix Suns having the success that they have had. Also, I will throw in one thing just about Tristan Thompson. I don't have like a long-winded thing to say about it. I just think it's kind of insane to be taking performance enhancers just to be a Tristan Thompson in the NBA. You know, that's just crazy, man. From what I heard from Cavs fans after the news came out was that he had actually been playing way better this year. So I guess it was working for him, but they were like, yeah, no way Tristan Thompson's good in 2024. Something's fishy here. To be fair, there are people who take performance-enhancing drugs just to be, like, accountants. So, fair enough if you're a professional athlete, I guess. Anyways, let's move on to the Bucks. So they fired Adrian Griffin. This was following 2 straight games versus the Detroit Pistons, where the Pistons were competitive for pretty much every quarter of that game. Obviously, there has been some concerns about the Milwaukee Bucks. I do believe those concerns have been pretty dramatically overblown, which is why I do think the Adrian Griffin thing, I'm not as pro this decision as a lot of other people may be. I'll get into why that is. But just to lay over what has been wrong with the Bucks, you know, they had a defensive reputation. They've been no worse than like 5th defensively over the last couple of years, ever since they broke into the true contender category after they added Brook Lopez. And from that point on, they've always been a great defense. This year, they're ranked 21st. It is worth noting that the defense has continued to improve as the year has gone along, although I do feel like it's hit a bit of a wall recently and it might just be capped out at that tier. I definitely think the Bucks are more than capable of playing better defense with the personnel that they have, so that can honestly be chalked up to coaching stuff, but it also has just been a weird adjustment. And a big thing that I bring up all the time when talking about the Bucks is that they got Damian Lillard like right before training camp. Like, this was not something that was planned for all that much. I don't think that Adrian Griffin had a game plan for in case they traded for Damian Lillard. It'd be kind of wild if he did, especially as a first-year coach. So that just changed entirely what your personnel was, and that really dramatically affected the defensive end of the floor. So yeah, I don't think it was the biggest issue in the world, and I think the Bucks could have tightened up on defense with Griffin or without him. But I don't know that it necessarily needed to be fired for that to happen personally. On the offensive end, though, that's the thing that irks me about this conversation, is that this is the best offense the Bucks have had. They're an awesome offense. They currently have the 2nd best offensive rating in the NBA, which, if you are not aware, from the offense video, you would be aware if you watched it. The top 7 offenses in the NBA right now are the top 7 offenses of all time in terms of offensive rating. That means that this is technically the 2nd best offense of all time. So maybe there's a good trade-off there. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. The point that I'm getting at, the 2nd best record in the NBA, a defense that's steadily improving, definitely could be better. 2nd best offense of all time, just overall dominance. They have the 2nd best record in the East. And again, as I mentioned, at least they were a night ago. I don't know any games that may have changed this, but they were tied for the 2nd best win percentage in the entire NBA. Literally only the Celtics had a higher win percentage than them. Weird case. Ultimately, from what the reports suggest, It is that the Bucks he lost the locker room with the players. And that's a very bad thing to hear. Once the players have just kind of lost respect for the coach and don't really believe that he knows what he's doing, it's going to be real hard for them to put their energy into doing those things. Whether it's right or wrong for Griffin to have lost the locker room, whether that was truly his fault or not, at the end of the day, if that did happen, well, then you're just kind of fucked for the rest of the season, because even if Griffin is right about the things he's telling them to do, if he's telling them to do them and they're not doing them, or they're doing them half-assed, well, that's just no way to win a title. So from that point of view, if it truly is that bad, then I guess they needed to fire the guy. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, because firing your coach mid-season can be messy. It's worked before, like when they got Tyronn Lue in the middle of 2016 with the Cavaliers, the 2015-16 season. That worked out. They also had LeBron, so just factor that in a little bit. But the Bucks also have Giannis and Damian Lillard. But either way, it definitely could be a problem. I'm not too concerned about it, but it's definitely, you opened up yourself to that possibility. And I feel like with Griffin, I personally felt like they were entirely capable of winning a championship with this team. I don't think the people saying the Bucks were just non-factors or like not a tier 1 contender, that was just silly. I'm sorry, it just simply was. That's that end of it. Now the next thing to discuss is coaching replacements. The main candidate is Doc Rivers. That is interesting. Why? Why is the only question I can ask following that. Like, the title of this is going to be something like, why do teams keep hiring him, or something along those lines. But Doc Rivers is not a bad coach. That's the perfect spot that he exists in. He is just okay. And that means that any team that's hiring him is guaranteeing the floor of having an okay coach. And given the volatility of coaching in the NBA, being able to do better than okay is great, but not every franchise is afforded that luxury. However, I do feel that if you are a contender and you really want to go far, and you're specifically like, you made big moves like the Dame trade specifically to make sure that you can continue to be a contending level team, you do that, and then you bring in fucking Doc Rivers. That is insane, okay? Because if you want to be this good, you should hope at least, maybe you won't achieve it, because who knows who's available, who knows what will really work, but at the bare minimum, you should at least try to aim for better than okay. Going for Doc Rivers is very much settling for okay. And I just don't think that's okay. And I think, honestly, maybe it wouldn't be a downgrade from Griffin, but it would also potentially lock you into a longer-term deal with Doc Rivers that's just entirely unnecessary. Do you feel like the Bucks haven't blown a 3-1 lead yet and they need to do that? Like, is that what you're going for? Because Doc is great for that. Otherwise, there are better options. I'm pretty sure Mike Budenholzer doesn't have a job with any franchise. So if you want to bring him back after firing him after his brother died, it could be a nice gesture to give the man his job back when he's more capable of it than Doc Rivers is, and more capable of it than Adrian Griffin is, and has the history with that locker room. I assume they respect him. I don't think he got fired for that reason. I don't know what to tell you. Weird case. Didn't expect it for sure. I expected Griffin would likely be fired in the offseason, but middle of the season is a bold decision. Moving on to the Indiana Pacers and Pascal Siakam. Since the trade, they're unfortunately 0-3. However, that does require one very important bit of context, which is that Tyrese Halliburton has missed 2 of those 3 games, and they were playing some pretty good freaking teams, and they weren't even like getting smacked. So the Phoenix Suns, we're going to talk about them in a bit. They are on a 6-game win streak, And ever since Bradley Beal's been in the lineup, they have been quite good, which is not all that big of a surprise. And they also lost to the Denver Nuggets. Don't really need to explain that one. The one loss that isn't great, but you know, it's just one loss, so don't freak out about it too much. It was the one game that they actually had Tyrese Halliburton, and they lost by 3 to the Portland Trail Blazers. So that's not ideal. In terms of counting stats, I think this is actually a pretty good game from the Pacers. Not that the Pacers often have games that don't have good counting stats. And 118 points, I feel like for the Blazers, that's definitely a lot, but otherwise for the Pacers, 118 is like just another day in the office. So yeah, I don't know. You probably should have won this game, but it was also the first time with a new guy and you're adjusting to it. And, you know, again, individually counting stats for Tyrese, for Pascal, and especially for Miles Turner, all really good. It's just going to take some time to get adjusted to him. Unfortunately, Siakam hasn't necessarily been like, you know, if Tyrese is out, I got us, because in his last 2 games, he has not been very efficient, and he's only put up about 15 points, 5.5 assists, which is nice, but 43% from the field, not good. He had 21 in his first game on 65%. I have no real concerns for how this team's going to look with everybody, but it is worth acknowledging that it hasn't been great yet. But I'm also not really judging the Pacers much at all based on anything that they're doing without Tyrese, because Tyrese is the engine of that team and then some. So yeah, I don't have too much to say about it. I think Pascal is going to be fine. I think the Pacers are going to be fine. I think they're going to be better than fine. I think they're going to be better than they were. I think it's also worth noting that like Miles Turner had that good first game, not so great the second game, but I believe he was good in the other one. Maybe I'm tripping. Yeah, Miles Turner had 22 points in this game. I do feel like he's benefiting from the presence of Siakam. I think that him and Siakam is a really good backcourt fit or front court fit. I always fuck those up. I don't know. I don't have a lot to say about this, as it turns out. The Phoenix Suns have been on a 6-game win streak, and they look really, really good with Bradley Beal. Now, I have been critical of the Phoenix Suns because my overall logic on them has been that most teams that are truly contenders, when missing their third best player, can be better than this. And I still feel that way, and that's still something that ultimately prevents me from putting the Suns into a contender tier. However, this is a good sign for what they're capable of when they're actually healthy. How often that ends up happening, who is to say? But they beat the Lakers, they beat the Blazers, they beat the Kings, they beat the Pelicans, who have also been pretty good lately. They beat Indiana, as previously mentioned, and they beat the Chicago Bulls off of a Kevin Durant game winner. I had a few comments like suggesting I didn't want to acknowledge the game winner in a video, but it just didn't come up in the context of that video. But yes, Kevin Durant hit a really sick double clutch mid-range game winner on the Bulls. I'd really appreciate it if that team blew it up, but what are you gonna do? You know, we were kind of good for a week, therefore we need to draw out another fucking season. But that aside, it's also just been really impressive offense. 115 points, 117 points, 123 points, 119 points, 127 points, 127 points. So they're doing what, like 118 at their worst, 115 at their worst, a couple of 120 plus games. Unstoppable offense, no doubt. I do think that they are still not a contender to me personally, but that's just because I have some hyper-specific things that I care about in this category that the Suns do not meet. I understand that they have the talent. I just don't think they have anything else. But, you know, I could be wrong, and we'll see. This recent win streak could be proof of exactly that. But anyways, that is it. A shout out to Alex for editing this video. Alex?
What the fuck?
That's a different friend, Jacob. Shout out to Nick for editing this video. But that is it. Goodbye. Oh, also, again, go check out that main channel video. Please.